The transition is over. Joshua has taken the mantle from Moses and is now the leader of the people of God. God had called a people out of slavery, out of Egypt, into what he called a promised land. And now Joshua was going to lead them on their first steps into this new promised land. In order to determine if the time was right, he called 2 spies from his camp to go into the promised land and to spy on those in Canaan. They went there and they stayed in the house of Rahab. In the house of Rahab, they found that they were known and sought. And so the spies hid with Rahab, then ran out at her advice to the mountains for 3 days, hid there, and returned to Joshua to say, all of Canaan is in incredible fear, for they know that we're here. The time is right for us to enter the promised land and receive what God has called us to. And Joshua agreed and determined that the time was right, that God had made them for this moment. And so he rallied the people, a people who just 40 years ago had been slaves in Egypt. And in order to get out, Moses, their old leader, opened up the Red Sea by lifting his staff, and God moved the waters back, and they walked through the mighty Red Sea. And a similar miracle happens on the way into the promised land. The Jordan is not as big as the Red Sea, but the final step to go back through dry land where water once was seems important. Joshua leads the Ark of the Covenant into the water, and the waters recede, and all of Israel walks across. And they now, 40 years after leaving slavery, have taken their first step into promised land. At that moment, God speaks to Joshua and tells him to do something in order to memorialize this moment. And we're going to read those words today. In Joshua chapter 4, we're going to read verses 1 through 9 to see what happens when the people of God make it into the land that God had promised them. Would you join me in standing as we read this story this morning? When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Choose 12 men from among the people, 1 from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight." So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, 1 from each tribe, and said to them, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever." So the Israelites did as Joshua commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, as the Lord had told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to their camp where they were put down. Joshua set up the 12 stones that had been in the middle of the Jordan at a spot where the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant had stood. And they are there to this day. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And so we've assembled 12 stones up here today. Not that we walked through the Jordan, but we're going to do some work of recollecting what God has done in our past. And for the next few weeks, we're going to have them in the sanctuary, so that just as in the text here, if you see the stones, you can remember what God has done amongst us at Crossroads. And so today, I want to tell you 12 stories or name 12 ministries that have happened in 2019 that are worth remembering so that we can be reminded of the stories of God's presence and work and ministry amongst us. We're going to recollect what's happened in the past as a reminder and as a call to what could be possible in the future. And so I'm going to start with the first stone. One that is really exciting to me is that we've seen new leaders raised from among our congregation in the church. I mean this with the deepest of sincerity. A church is only as good as its people. No pastor can make a church great. A pastor can only be a part of a church that is great, a part of a people who are great. And we have some just amazing people. I sincerely brag about you all the time. My friends and family are probably tired of me talking about how much I love the people in this church. But I just want to name a few people who this year stepped into new ministries in our church. Lorene Huffman took over the women's ministry, and a bunch of ladies entered into our women's council, starting new ministries and ideas for our women in the church. Allison Dandridge became the MOPS mentor mom. Lauren Wheatley became the MOPS co-director. Ann Carlson took over Moms Next from her mom, Kay. Jason Hollenkamp became the coach and leader of the men's softball team. Leslie Stark, Connie Staller, and Steve Carlson all began on the church board this year. Bill Wilson became our youth president. Amy Brown became our NMI president. Heather King, Jason Dandridge, Dave Shepard, Dave Lowe, Devin Snyder, and Keith Valentine all led worship ministries one Sunday or another during the year. Well, I could go on and on and on about the people, but these are just ones that came right to my mind of folks who began serving in new ministries this year. And so we're going to set the first stone right here front and the center, thinking about and remembering how many people out of us God is calling to leadership. And to remind you as well that there's more work to be done. And we're always looking for volunteers, people who are willing to help and to step out and to become a committed member of the church, working towards the vision and goals that God has called us to. I thank you all so much, those who have named and those who weren't named, for all that you do. Second, we've seen some exciting stories come out of our marriage ministry in our church here this year. I asked Pastor Nan if she would get a story for me, and the story I have, names have been removed so that we're not suspecting who it is, but their testimony to the church is this, that marriage ministry really helped me personally in driving me to seek more help from Christ, even while my partner still saw the old me. I don't blame them now as I reflect on this. Instead, I'm going to apply what I've learned from the classes I've been to and see how it works in our marriage. Dan and Nan have worked with this couple for over a year, and they're seeing a definite healthy change in their mindset, away from despair in their marriage towards hope in their marriage. And that's truly what we want to do, and see that marriages that are struggling are healed. And it's exciting to tell the story of one family who are experiencing the early days of giving themselves over to this ministry, and that their marriage is finding health and moving in the right direction. The third stone I want to talk about is our youth ministry. So many exciting things happening amongst our teens. On a weekly basis, I don't know if you've ever seen it on a Wednesday night, but this room transforms. There's like basketball court over here and soccer over here and chairs set up everywhere in the middle. And on a weekly basis, they're averaging upwards into the 90s and pushing towards 100 on a Wednesday night. Then on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., they also meet down the hall in the fellowship hall. And on a given week, if you counted the unique visitors, not counting anyone twice, from Sunday or Wednesday night, we have over 100 teens here every single week. And Pastor Jesse is doing an incredible job leading them and shaping them and discipling them, including the fact that recently I have noticed and observed that on their Wednesday night gathering, they've had even junior hires get up on this stage and share the testimony of what Christ has done in their life to their peers in this place. That's an incredible gift to have that sort of youth ministry where people are telling the story to each other what God has done in their life. Also this year, they went to Nazarene Youth Conference, which was in Phoenix, Arizona. It happens every 4 years. And we got that ball rolling this year, and I'm looking forward to 4 years from now seeing even more teenagers go. But Jesse was a leader for the Mid-Atlantic District for that and brought some of our teens with him to that event. And then also something that I observed from that group that I just think is fantastic is that the leaders that assist Jesse in developing our teens aren't just parents. There are folks who aren't parents of teenagers, and more specifically, there are young adults in our congregation who are the leaders into the generation directly behind them. To see our folks who are in their young 20s mentoring teenagers and giving themselves to that work is an incredible gift to this church, that it's not just parents showing up, but others coming as well to make sure that they're involved in the discipleship of our teenagers. We have a thriving teen ministry, and it is very exciting to be a part of a church that has that going on. I'm going to try not to ruin the stage. Number 4, this year we had multiple missions days and initiatives where we went out into the community to get involved with what God is doing in other places. We had a day where we served with Habitat for Humanity and helped build a house in Baltimore. We also went to Baltimore City Schools on a day, and many, many incredible things came out of that day. I know that the school I went to, I worked with about 5 other people on simply removing a viney bush, a weed that had grown up into a fence and then extended all the way along the fence so that you couldn't even see into the school property. And I was told by the janitor that this was becoming problematic for parents in the neighborhood. They couldn't identify what that weed was, and they were afraid that it could be something that would cause allergies like poison ivy or something like that. And so parents in Baltimore City were leery of sending their kids to this school. And just having people from our church going to remove that weed, to take it down, it had grown well out of control. And just taking that down created a stability and lessened the fear of parents that their kids would catch something from this out-of-control bush. It was so large and so intertwined in the fence, it had been there for years, and it was not anything that one employee of a school could manage or take care of on their own. And so Crossroads showed up and helped with that, and also did things that's not in the budget of Baltimore City Schools. We raked, we laid down mulch, we planted things, we edged, we trimmed back trees that were overgrown into bus lanes that made it difficult for kids to get out of the buses. This is something that was outside of the financial and workman power of Baltimore City Schools. And the Thanksgiving that they showed was incredible. In fact, I think I told you a couple weeks ago that the janitor asked me if I would pray for him before I left. He knew that I was a pastor. He knew I was there with the church, but I didn't even have to seek him out because he knew we were there giving and showing a love out of the kindness and graciousness and call of our church. He began to tell me of his life situation and asked that I would lay hands on him and pray for him. This sort of ministry outside of our church walls opens up incredible spiritual opportunities as well. A few other things that our missions did beyond just those days were we worked with First Fruits Farms, a place that grows fruit and produce so that they can give it to families that struggle to afford it on their own in grocery stores. We did the Angel Tree over the last couple of the last month, the last few weeks in this time of year. And we've also continued our international involvement with places like the Child Development Center in India, because we believe at Crossroads that we're called to be involved with the mission of God locally and in the entire world. And we've done some incredible things in that regard in the past year. Number 5 is the banner off to my left over here, the No Longer Lost banner. We've invited people through this year as they've come to faith to sign their name on there. And we've had over 100 signatures from the ministry of this church this year of people who publicly professed that they have come to faith in Jesus Christ. It has happened, it's great, right? 100 people, and not all of them go to our church. Some of them were here, accepted Christ, and went to other churches. Some of them were kids from VBS that go to other churches for the first time, said that they wanted to be a Christian in their life. But this is the extent of the ministry of our church. And so if you wanted to, we're going to try to put up some new initiatives in the coming year, but if you wanted to go up and see all of the names and people that God has shown, that have been willing to show their name, that God has transformed their life, that's an exciting place to go and see all of the work that God has done this year in bringing people to himself through the ministry of our church. Number 6, at Easter time this year, I challenged you all into a way of prayer. We called it 1.1.1.1, which stood for one prayer once a day for 1 minute for one person to join you on Easter Sunday. And we had a report of dozens of people coming back saying that they had accepted that challenge and begun the process of praying for their friends or neighbors or coworkers or family members. And overwhelmingly, people were excited about such a simple, intangible way to pray for people that they loved, that they would come to church and find faith. And on Easter Sunday morning, we had dozens of people excitedly tell me that the person they had been praying for had come. And it was such a powerful reminder to me, and hopefully for the church, of what a simple act of praying for someone opens doors for us to have conversations about our faith in non-threatening ways. And doing that simple act of aiming towards Easter for just a couple of weeks, a time where people may already have a spiritual curiosity growing within them, just us as a church praying for 1 minute a day made a tangible difference to help us become inviters to that particular service. And it made a big, big difference in terms of how many people came, and then also the esteem and excitement of our people as the people they invited did come. Prayer, corporate prayer, praying together, praying for others is an important part of our spiritual work. And that was a reminder to me of how effective it can be as well. Number 7 is maybe one that's a little less exciting, but yet it's one that's incredible nonetheless. We did many major expenditures this year, and we did it all debt-free. For example, one of the things we did was repave our upper parking lot. You might have noticed this because you had to go and get shocks and struts work done on your car in June or July, having been to church on Sunday. But in November, you might have come to church and felt as though your ride was silky smooth. We did that paying with cash up front. This building is starting to get to be about 15 years old, which means things like air conditioning is causing to struggle more and more. So every year for the last 2 years, we've had to put thousands of dollars into replacing or renewing air conditionings that are getting to that point of age. We had made a goal about 5-6 years ago of trying to pay this part of the building off by 2020. And with leadership change, that's been a little difficult and set back, but we're still on track to be done and debt-free by the year 2022. And we've been doing that by every single month paying double mortgage and not just a single mortgage. So we've been heading towards trying to get this part of the building paid off really soon, again, by paying 2 mortgage payments every single month. And then you may have also noticed, at least I hope you noticed, because I'm very excited about this, that we have a new sign on the street out in front of the church. Did you notice this? Well, you don't seem as excited as I am about it. Yeah, thank you. But we did the work of changing our logo. One of the things we knew was that the sign on the street was old lighting technology. It was kind of dim at night, and then also it looked like it was from a computer program made in 2001. Because it was from a computer program made in 2001. And that's not a problem, but it was time for us to update it. And all of these things that I just named, we did paying for cash. We did not take out any debt to do this kind of work, this kind of updating, because we're still focused in heading towards being debt-free very, very soon. And so we don't do that for any other reasons than that we want to be responsible with the money that God entrusts us, but we also want to be accountable and responsible to the ways that you give and support this church as well. We want you to know what we're doing, and we want you to see that we're doing this as responsibly as we can so that we are trustworthy and that we're doing the work that God has called us to, and we're caring for God's building and God's resources in ways that are responsible. And we always want to be putting this in front of you so that you know that we as leaders of this church, whether pastors or church board, are responsible with what you entrust us with and what God entrusts us with. And we hope some of these stories help you see that we're working really, really hard and being very responsible in the gifts that you give us. And we thank you again for the way you give, the way you respond, the way you help. It makes a tremendous difference, and we appreciate it very much. Number 8 is a series of stories about what God has been doing in the lives of people called to ministry. This year at our district assembly, we had 3 people from this church ordained. Pastor Jesse, our youth pastor, was ordained. Pastor Richard Brash was ordained at that service as well. And then God called him, and we sent him to Glen Burnie Church of the Nazarene, where he got his first full-time lead pastor assignment. Pastor Jay Brooks as well, who had been ordained in another denomination, was received and recognized in his ordination in our denomination as well. And the story doesn't start, stop, and end with the ordinations. Many other things happened as well. Pastor Jeff Tavares was called to be a part of our congregation again, and he's leading some really incredible initiatives in small groups and discipleship ministries and doing an incredible job there. We also hired Christy Vespa to join us in our office and to work on our graphic design, to man our front desk, and to do administrative work to help us as well. If you've not met Christy yet, she goes to the 9 a.m. service, but she is an absolute gift to us, and we are thankful for her. And beyond that, we've also seen 4 people receive their local minister's license this year as well, recognizing and affirming that God is working and calling people out of Crossroads to pastoral ministry. Those 4 people are Mitesh Vayada, Liz Powers, Elijah Perry, and Randy Clay. That is a lot of really neat stuff happening in our congregation this year in terms of people being called and equipped and training for ministry. Number 9, at our major events this year, we had an overwhelming number of people, and it seems worth celebrating. At our Christmas Eve service just about 2 weeks ago, we had 606 people here in 2 services, which is an incredible number considering how many people are at family activities or out of town or traveling. Our Easter attendance this year was 813 people. In 2019, we had 27 new members join our church. And as we want to be a church that's about finding a place where you can belong, membership is part of that push, and I hope you've seen it, because membership is about you saying, I'm a part of this church, and us saying to you, we want you to be a part of our church. And then also this year, we had a lot of baptisms as well. In the year 2019, there were 17 baptisms in our church as well. And for me, all of these things are incredibly worth celebrating as we see God moving in a number of people's lives. Number 10 was the food truck day. Now, I've been talking a lot, especially with my leaders, about us not simply being an attractional church, hoping that we're a great church and people come to. People aren't necessarily looking for churches like they used to when we were all younger. We need to move towards a missional model where we're going out and getting involved in our community and making relationships and trying to invite people that way. And so one of the ways that we did this was a food truck day where we advertised mostly to the neighborhoods immediately adjacent to us. And we had no idea how this was going to go at all. In fact, we had so little idea that we could only get 2 food trucks to commit to be there that night. And even then, we were on the line if it didn't work out to pay a few $1,000s to thank them for coming and apologize for their day. But it was incredible. Both food trucks ran out of food and asked us to please invite them back if we ever do it again, because there were about 700 to 800 people here waiting in line at the food trucks to get food before they ran out of food. Most of them were people from our community and not necessarily folks from Crossroads, though many of you were there. We had people coming off the streets because they saw what was happening and came and want to participate and be involved. And it was one of the most exciting opportunities that I've seen for us just to be good neighbors to the people who live in the place that we worship. And it was really, really exciting to see that day. Our next one is going to be Pastor Lynn and Allison Dandridge coming up and talking about what's going on in our children's ministry. And I could tell you all sorts of things about our children's ministry that's very exciting. We could talk about how every single week there are about 145 to 150 kids in our children's ministry. We could talk about how rare and how exciting it is that we have a church where between a quarter and a third of every Sunday's attendance is children. That is a rare occurrence in our world today. We could talk about VBS and what a big, exciting adventure that is every single year, and how many people are involved in helping make that happen, and how many kids end up coming. But this year we wanted to talk about a new ministry that was being formed amongst us, and something that God is calling us to, and we're starting to see some fruit of. We want to talk about how that fits our vision and mission for the church. And so I'm going to hand it over to Pastor Lynn and Allison for them to talk about a special ministry that's gotten really taken off in this last year.
Well, Happy New Year, Crossroads family. It is so good to be here with you today. Over the last year and a half, we have been on mission. I love the part of our new mission statement where it talks about how we want to be a trusted presence in our community. And I'm here to remind you and to keep before you that there is an unreached people group in our community. And my heart and my prayer to the Lord has been, God, would you entrust us with such a ministry? And that is ministering to families who have children with special needs. And the Lord just began to lay this on my heart, I guess about a year and a half ago, and I started praying. If you've been around Crossroads, you know that this has been in our DNA for a very long time. So this isn't something that I am now bringing new to the table. But I did feel like the Lord said to go ahead and start to put feet to that vision and to make it more formal and official. So as I began to pray, not long after that, Allison Dandridge here approached me because the Lord had been moving upon her heart as well. So in all of our research and in our seeking just to see what is out there and how we can do this well, I just want to read to you a few statistics that I found. There's a ministry called Church for Every Child, and they've done thorough investigating, and here's some of the stats that they've reported. People with special needs and their families are less likely to attend worship services, Bible studies, and other church activities. People with autism are more likely to be atheist and more likely to reject organized religion. And families with special needs reports that many churches are, quote, unwilling to try, unhelpful, anxious about our needs and the challenges that my family brings to them. They feel very isolated and rejected. I don't know about you, but that hits home for me. That lays a just a burden upon my heart, where it just causes me to, Lord, would you entrust us? Could we be a trusted presence for this unreached people group in our midst? And so another thing that the site reports is that forward thinkers in churches who are intentional about reaching these families, they avoid one-size-fits-all approach to children's ministry and ministry in general. They meet families in their greatest place of felt need. They possess an inclusive attitude, not a mere tolerance. You see, I've even began talking to our children, getting them ready to not only acknowledge those families who are already in our midst, but to get them ready for the ones that the Lord will send to us. There's a difference in including and welcoming and going and reaching out, going out of our way and being intentional in serving these families versus just tolerating. So we definitely want to improve in that. Families, our churches, they will take time to speak directly to the children. Oh, if you haven't done that, you'll be totally blessed. They offer to sit with them. They check in on their parents and their families. They notice when they're absent. They take meals to them, etc. In short, they foster friendships and relationships. Of the people that do attend churches, it was reported that 86.5% said that their church still needs more education and training. And so here we did, about a year and a half ago, we officially launched our Created Special ministry. And as you know, Allison here has been our fearless leader, and I just want to brag on her a bit. She has grown our team to 6 individuals. She trains them. She has joined support groups. She's educated herself beyond her own experience and knowledge and continues to do so. And she serves with grace and humility, roughly 4 families now in our church. Can we celebrate her? So I've invited her to come up here with me and just give us an update, share what's on your heart.
Thank you. Hello? Same thing happened first service? Okay, thank you. God has been so good. As Pastor Lynn mentioned, this is a relatively young ministry here at our church, and I just want to share with you for a few minutes why I'm so excited about it. One additional statistic to what Lynn had shared is it's estimated that 90% of families who have children with special needs are not a regular part of a church community. And, you can logically think of all the different reasons and, putting aside the challenges of the week and the obstacles gone through at school, at home, running around to multiple appointments, that kind of thing. There are 2 questions in the minds of each family. Will my child be safe? And will my child be loved and welcomed, and like Lynn said, not just tolerated, if that. And I have found, and I think all of you would agree, Crossroads is an exceptionally welcoming and loving place. I've experienced it personally with my family. I see it throughout our congregation and children's ministry, in the youth group. And it's very clear that, again, it kind of in our DNA, we want every child, every person who comes here to experience God's love and feel included and feel valued for who they are. I once read that when Jesus said in Matthew 19:14, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them," that this was an all-inclusive call. It's not limited to kids who can sit quietly and listen, or color between the lines, or function at grade level. It does not disqualify someone because of a physical condition, a developmental delay, or any other hidden disability. And so it's in that space that created special functions. And what we do is we provide one-on-one buddies for kids who may not be able to be in a Sunday school setting or a children's church setting otherwise. And what's exciting to me is not only do the children have the opportunity to hear about Jesus and feel his love and just be comfortable to be who they are, just like God made them, but it gives the parents and the siblings and other caregivers an opportunity to come and worship and be fed and renewed and just enjoy the fellowship of our church community. So over the past year and a half, God has done some great things. He's been teaching us how to minister and serve these wonderful families and children, and on a small scale. He has not overwhelmed me. And he's just gently led us here, and I've really appreciated the graciousness of families and buddies alike. I pretty much feel like our motto is, we'll just figure it out. He's always provided exactly who and what we need. When we first launched a year and a half ago and kind of spoke to you guys about our vision and the need, we had one child that we wanted to find a buddy for. And when I say buddy, it's really two buddies, because we have a team that rotates and takes turns each week working with them. But God provided exactly who we needed at that time. And then the following school year came about, and we had two children that we wanted to find buddies for. And again, God provided the exact right people, the exact right number, just right in time. And then even just very recently, someone approached me about a family. They knew that I was interested in coming to church, and I was so excited. It was an older student, and I was like, yes, that's fantastic. And then my human thought was, we don't have who? We don't have the buddy, we don't have the people, all that human stuff that goes on. But he just rose up instantly, a person who was interested in forming that kind of relationship. And it's just been so awesome to watch God just provide each step of the way. On a more personal level, I had one of the family that we know that comes here say that they've experienced so much joy that their child was not only accepted, but our church embraced them, and that they now can come and they can worship together as a family. And just on a super personal level, as a buddy, I love it. It's fantastic. It's just such a joy to be a part of this. So my hope and my prayer going forward is that, again, as piece of our Crossroads mission to be a trusted presence in the area, that we can really be the community for families with children with unique and special needs. And to do that, we want to be ready. And so if you feel that God might be speaking to you about becoming a part of it, I'll be in the back after the service, and I can share more information with you. We're not only looking for people who would want to be a regular one-on-one buddy and form these relationships with the families and the kids, but even people who would be interested in serving on special events, Vacation Bible School, or a district team day, or somewhere where we might have families outside of our church, normal church family, come and want to participate. Our guiding verse is Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. And I think we're just both very excited about the families that God is going to be leading here, and just to see his kingdom grow through these relationships. Thanks.
I just want to say really quick, I do feel like the Lord has said that the field is ripe for the harvest. So please pray. Ask the Lord, what will be your role? When we ask for volunteers and so forth, here's what I like to say. We don't use the people to get the work done. God uses the work to get the people done. And so you will be greatly the Lord will just use the children that you would serve. He will just use them mightily in growing you and even in your own life. So thank you. Stop by and see us at the back table.
Thank you so much, guys, for that incredible work that you're doing and the leadership that you're providing. The last stone that I want to talk about is one that that we put a lot of work into when we this year debuted our vision and mission articulation to the church. We put together a group of about 30 people from the seats that you're sitting in. This was not my vision, but hopefully this was God's vision stirred among the people given to us. And so we articulated it this year, and you'll see that in the coming year it'll become a centering work, a centering idea even more. It's above my shoulder right now. Hopefully by now you're starting to recognize seeing this talked about. But the basic idea is that it's built on 4 pillars, that we want to be a church that helps neighbors and friends discover Jesus by being a trusted presence in Greater Baltimore. We also want to make it simple to belong to our church family. We want to be a place that helps you identify your unique role to play in God's story. And we want to be a place where you can develop a personal faith that serves and thrives in today's world. I think these are exciting visions and goals and missions and calls upon our life. And I want to make sure that it becomes central to who we are. And so we have created a video that I'm going to debut for you right now. We're going to show this every single week. So you might eventually get very tired of this video. But what I want it to do when you see it is to recenter you, to remember who it is that we're called to be collectively. And even if it's April and you're tired of it, or you finally roll your eyes in November, please remember also that in this last year that we had, the smallest week we had was 3 visitors. Every single week we had at least 3 people come here for the first time. And so it's also a reminder and a call to new people of who we are trying to become as a people. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to watch it. It's just over a minute long, and you'll start seeing this on a week-to-week basis as part of our church worship gathering, as a call and reminder of who it is that we're yearning and striving and directing to be. Check this out.
Welcome to Crossroads today. We're glad you're here. Whether you're a longtime member, first-time visitor, or anything in between, thanks for choosing to worship with us. We recognize that life is complicated. Work, family, activity, busyness. Today's world provides unique challenges for faith development and flourishing. There is more choice, activity, distraction, connectivity, and obligation than ever before. At Crossroads, we want to help you thrive in our culture. We believe the best way to thrive is by growing close to Jesus and learning to discern His voice through all of the noise so that we can follow Him. This is the path to peace, hope, and joy. Crossroads is a church for people journeying toward thriving faith in Jesus. We covenant to help people move people through our 4 objectives. By helping you, your neighbors, and friends discover Jesus by being a vibrant worshiping community that is a trusted presence in Greater Baltimore. By making it simple to belong to our church family. By assisting you to identify your unique role to play in God's story. And by offering support as you develop a personal faith that functions and serves in today's world. This is our mission. Together, we will help many people, including you and your family, flourish through life's crossroads.
So that's a bit of a recap of what God has done amongst us in the last year. And coming into 2020, there are a couple of goals that I've been thinking about that I'd like to see us accomplish. First and foremost, I would like to get to the point that we finally hire a worship pastor. That has been a difficult task that we did not anticipate. Norm and I have each gone on different searches, and we have not turned up anything. So if you'd join us in praying that God would send us the right person for that role, I would deeply appreciate it. I'd like to see us in the next year add about 100 people to our church who are regular attenders. I'd like to see us develop new streams of giving that help us become stable and relevant beyond our own eras here. I want to think critically about longer-term gifts and stability and finances beyond just donor giving. An example of this is that back in our woods behind us, you may notice that there are towers back there that we rent out to cell phone companies for them to give service. This is a way that we generate revenue using the property that we have here that helps us fund ministries beyond just what we get in tithes and offerings. We're thinking critically about how we could develop more streams of giving like that to make this church functional in a world where nonprofit giving is down across the board. I'd like to see us develop deeper wells of leadership and commitment from our congregation. I told you a little bit about some of the leaders that I'm excited about in last year who developed, and I'm hoping to see more and more step forward and to buy into this being your place. When we say that there's a place for you, we don't just simply mean as a consumer, although you're welcome to be that if that's where you're at in life. But belonging so often is more than just showing up and attending. Belonging is found in relationships and in sweat equity of working with one another, of making relationships and ministries that are meaningful to you, and giving yourself to a place, a people, and a purpose. And so some of the places that I'd like to see us develop leaders, if God were calling you to it, is into new prayer ministries, people who just gather to pray for the church and the pastors and the ministries. I'd like to see new greeting and parking lot and hospitality ministries develop, including possibly folks who would be willing to start by greeting people in the parking lot and beginning there our effort of letting people know that they can belong to our church. We need people who are willing to be technology assistants, and we need children's check-in workers. We can go on and on from low-level commitments and low level of ability to high level of commitment and high level ability. And your willingness to jump into some of these roles doesn't just keep Crossroads functioning and moving, but it also helps you feel like this is your church and this is your people. It helps you put names to faces and stories to people and feel like you're connecting to people and working more and more to belong here. And so as we close out today, I'm going to invite you as we sing this final song. I would love to see it if you would come up here and join me in praying. We're not going to kneel or anything like that, but I'm just going to stand here and pray for our church, for the things we talked about, the future, the coming year, ministries that matter, people who come to my heart. And if you'd be willing to come and just join me and put your hand on the shoulder of someone next to you, and as we sing, as this song is played, just pray for the church for the coming year if you're willing to come as we conclude today.